Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 14th chapter. Blessed is the man that hath not slipped with his mouth, and is not pricked with the multitude of sins. Blessed is he whose conscience hath not condemned him, and who is not fallen from his hope in the Lord. Now I'm going to read these two here in the GNTD translation. Verse 1 and 2, it says, if a person never says anything careless, he is to be congratulated. That's the have not slipped with his mouth. He doesn't need to feel guilty. Verse 2, if a person has a clear conscience and never gives up hope, he is certainly to be congratulated. Okay, whose conscience has not condemned him. Verse 3, riches are not comely for a niggard. Now, the word or the term niggard is, it says here, it's I wrote it down, the definition, a meanly covetous and stingy person. Okay, so riches are not comely. It's not right, for a niggard to have money, right, to be rich. And what should an envious man do with money, right? Because concerning these, individuals, it's not going to be of good service, right? At least what they're going to do with that money. Verse 4, he that gathereth by defrauding his own soul gathereth for others, that shall spend his goods righteously. And the person that gathers by defrauding his own soul is basically one that you could say cheats himself, right? Because he's hoarding up wealth and collecting it, but ultimately somebody else is gonna spend it. Somebody else is gonna go to somebody else, right? So they're like stingy even for themselves, and there are people like that, right? They have money, but they don't want to spend it. Like they're penny pinchers. Okay, it says here, verse 5, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods. Okay, so even one that is evil to himself, if he's evil even to himself, because the scriptures talk about loving somebody as yourself, your neighbor as yourself. If somebody's evil even to themselves, how are they going to be good to anybody else? Okay, as it says, he shall not take pleasure in his goods. Verse 6, there is none worse than he that envieth himself. Now you might wonder, how does somebody envy themselves? Okay, the envieth himself here is referring to somebody that, like we read in, I think, verse 4, somebody that refuses to spend, like a penny pincher, but to the extreme, right? They deny comfort to even themselves, right? By refusing, to enjoy what they already possess. It's basically like a self-directed stinginess. Okay, it says, and this is a recompense of his wickedness, meaning that his punishment or his recompense is built into his behavior. Okay, and you can't enjoy life living like that. It says, and if he doeth good, he doeth it unwillingly, and at the last he will declare his wickedness. Let's read that verse 7 in the GNTD. It says here, when such a person does something good, it is only by accident. His selfishness will sooner than or later be evident. Okay. The envious man hath a wicked eye. He turneth away his face and despiseth men. Right. The envious or the greedy, person has a wicked eye. He turneth his face. Right. If somebody needs help, he acts like he doesn't see them. Okay, and despiseth men. He doesn't look out for people. He only looks out for himself. A covetous man's eye is not satisfied with his portion, because he's greedy, right? He's constantly looking at what somebody else has or what more he can get. And the iniquity of the wicked drieth up his soul, right? Because the wickedness of the wicked eventually is going to work evil against them. It's likened unto if their soul was like a well or some plant is being dried up by their wickedness. So it's working against them. A wicked eye envieth his bread, and he is a niggard at his table. Right, verse 10, reading that in the NLT, it says, some people are too stingy to put bread on their own table. My son, according to thy ability, do good to thyself, and give the Lord his due offering. See, so, sometimes you got to treat yourself, okay, according to your ability. but also, give the Lord what's due to him. Remember that death will not be long in coming, and that the covenant of the grave is not shewed unto thee. See, so you're not going to live forever. At least that's the advice right here. The point, the wisdom in here is that death, before you know it, is going to be knocking at your door, and you don't know when that's going to be. Right? The covenant of the grave is not showed unto thee. You don't know the day you're going to die. So, every so often you got to take care of yourself. Do good unto thy friend before thou die, and according to thy ability, stretch out thy hand and give to him. Right? So be generous. If he's your friend, treat them right, because that's gonna be beneficial towards you. Right? We read in a previous lesson in Tobit 12, it talks about how alms, right, deliver from death. Right? It's a righteous thing. So if you have a friend, do good to them. Verse 14, defraud not thyself of the good day, and let not the part of a good desire overpass thee. Meaning, defrauding not yourself on a good day, meaning you got to treat yourself sometimes. Okay? Don't let the part of a good desire, you want something, you want to try something, go ahead. Don't let it pass you. Reading that in the GNTD, it says, don't deny yourself a single day's happiness. If, if there's something you want to do and it's lawful, go ahead. Shalt thou not leave thy travails unto another, and thy labors to be divided by lot? So ultimately, the things that you're working hard for, you're not going to take it with you when you die. Somebody else is going to have it. So if you never, treat yourself, you never, do anything fun, and as long as it's righteous or it's lawful, all the work you're doing, then you're just going to live a life of just labor and then die. And that's it. Verse 16, give and take and sanctify thy soul, for there is no seeking of dainties in the grave. See? So, give, take, do stuff, get into it, have a good time every now and then, because those dainties, the pleasures of life, you're not going to get that in the grave. So you got to take advantage while you're here on the earth. All flesh waxeth old as a garment, for the covenant from the beginning is, thou shalt die to death, right? Which ultimately goes back to Adam, which was through from disobedience, right? It tells you that in Romans, right, through one man death reigned, right, from what was it, Adam to Moses, and really all the way on down to us. So we all gonna, well, as it says, right, we're all gonna die, which we know according to prophecy, there's gonna be an end of that cycle for Israel. Okay, but generally speaking, that is. Verse 18, as of the green leaves on a thick tree, some fall and some grow. So is the generation of flesh and blood. One cometh to an end, and another is born. Right, just like leaves. You got leaves, some, as I said, some fall and new ones grow. That's how it is on the earth, right? One generation dies and another comes up, in their stead. Verse 19, every work rotteth and consumeth away, and the worker thereof shall go withal. Let's read that verse 19 in the GNTD. Everything made by human hands will decay and perish, along with the person who made it, right? Eventually, because nothing lasts forever, is basically what it's saying here, right? Eventually, it's all gonna fade away. Blessed is the man that doth meditate good things in wisdom, and that reasoneth of holy things by his understanding. He that considereth her ways, that is wisdom, in his heart, shall also have understanding in her secrets, right? If you meditate on wisdom, you're gonna gain the understanding of her secrets. Go after her as one that traceth. One that traceth is a hunter or a tracker, and lie in wait in her ways. So basically, hunt her down, right? Like she's a prey, hunt her down. Verse 23, he that prieth in at her windows shall also hearken at her doors, right? So basically it's like desiring wisdom, almost like stalking her, right? You looking out, you looking at the window, you waiting at the doors, trying to see if she comes out. So you got to be a creep for wisdom. He that doth lodge near her house also shall fasten a pin in her walls. Verse 24 in the GNTD, camp as close to her house as you can get. And going to verse 25, and you will have a fine place to live, right? Which is what it says here. He shall pitch his tent nigh unto her, and shall lodge in a lodging where good things are, because that's going to be the benefit of having wisdom close by you. He shall set his children under her shelter, and shall lodge under her branches. Right. So when you live in wisdom and you raise up your children in wisdom, they they grow under her shelter, right? And so they're protected through the wisdom of the Lord, and shall lodge under her branches. By her he shall be covered from heat, and in her glory shall he dwell. And this is, speaking metaphorically here, but it's referencing the benefits and protection that you gain from wisdom. And that brings us to the end of the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 14th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.